And the lines are open on 011-542-2186. You can join us on social media, Twitter, it's at ANN7TV. Joining us in studio is Dr. Zingai Katsamba, General Secretary of the Economic Reform Assembly. We have Ngabuto Mabena also in studio. And we have the Kennedy Mandaza, ZANU-PF spokesperson, and Frank Chikoworo, Zimbabwean journalist, joining us on the phone line. Good evening to you, gentlemen, and thank you so much for your time. Mr. Chikoworo, just give us a sense as to what's happening on the ground. Earlier, we had unconfirmed reports that the SADC delegation were in fact turned away from entering Zimbabwe. Frank, can you hear me? All right, we'll get back to Frank. Give us a sense then, Mr. Mabena, having been in Zimbabwe almost like a week ago. I think Frank is with us. Frank, are you there? All right, we'll attempt to get hold of him again. Give us a sense of what's going on the ground.
Well, I was in Umtare over the weekend. We were there to celebrate the centenary of the Russian Socialist Revolution. The few people that we're speaking to on the streets were quite concerned about the developments that were likely to happen, because there was a sense that after the general had issued a statement, so people were not sure whether he was going to live up to his statement, and if he did, what was going to be the reaction from the government. So there was that uncertainty in Zimbabwe. But as you have heard from the clip, the majority of the people of Zimbabwe do not support a coup or a military takeover, but the majority of Zimbabwe, they want political change. After 37 years of Mugabe's rule, they believe that there must be change. So there is a division in terms of how then do you deal with the current situation from the majority of Zimbabwean perspective.
Mr. Mandaza, is Zimbabwe ready for a different alternative rule or the change in the form of the MDC or opposition parties? What is your view?
Thank you. My view is that Zimbabweans have an opportunity that has always been availed to them after every 5 years to choose a leader of their choice. And at any given time, including 2018, that opportunity will once again be availed to them to choose a leader of their choice. Whether they will choose an alternative party or they will choose ZANU-PF depends on what the political parties will sell to the electorate, because it all boils down to what is the product that you bring to the electorate in order for them to choose you.
Yeah, and but Dr. Katsamba, sorry to interrupt you, but there had been allegations of vote rigging even in previous elections. That's why we've seen the perpetual reign of ZANU-PF. Do you think, in your view, that the time has come for the ZANU-PF to step aside?
Personally, I don't believe so. Because if you see what's happening currently in Zimbabwe, which is codenamed a coup, which I don't know from which definition this coup is being defined from, because a coup is normally defined as seizure of power by military elite. But if you look, these are the same people that have been presiding over all the past polls that have been happening in Zimbabwe. So what is it that is new that these same elites are offering now? Is it a takeover of a government from the same government and giving it to the same government?
Yeah, let's go to the genesis of this particular situation, where the deputy minister was then removed, and we've subsequently heard from the veterans or the military veterans saying that they will protect the sovereignty, the freedom that was so hard fought for, and nobody will jeopardize that. Is this the catalyst that had essentially started the whole debacle?
Well, in the absence of a succession plan in ZANU-PF, it has given rise to these contending two factions, Team La Costa and the G40. You know that in the last few weeks, G40 was seen to be having an upper hand against Team La Costa, up to the point when the vice president was fired last week. Team La Costa has in its camp the military. So after they've lost politically, you know that the structures of ZANU-PF had listed over 100 members who were supposed to be fired. In the upcoming extraordinary Congress, those were perceived to be supporting a former Vice President Emmerson Mnangagwa. So the only avenue or the only card that was left for Team La Costa for them to come back into the game is exactly where we are now, where the military then has taken over, because Team La Costa is supported by the military, G4 is supported by the intellectuals in ZANU-PF and the Youth League. You remember the statement that was issued by the leader of the Youth League, whom we are told has also been arrested by Team La Costa.
And we're expecting more arrests as unconfirmed reports trickle in. We have a caller, Dudu, in Zimbabwe. Good evening to you, and thanks for calling.
Good evening.
Can you give us a sense of what's going on the ground there in Zimbabwe?
Well, I'm in Beirut, so there isn't much happening in Beirut. It's just calm as normal.
Okay. And your view in terms of the tipping point, seemingly that there is bound to be a regime change, at least if there's no concession on the First Lady succeeding Robert Mugabe?
Well, my thoughts are very simple. So far, SADC has taken a backseat. South Africa, Zambia, and all those neighboring countries have taken a backseat. And they've led us to this opportunity where we have a chance to fix something. If they can continue to take the backseat that they have been doing all along and give these people a chance to try and fix it, because obviously we are only here because SADC and all the people around haven't said or done anything. People have complained, we've had activists in jail and all sorts. Now we just want to fix it. If this is the first step to change, then I believe we should go for it. All hands on deck. Let's try and work it out. Because so far, there hasn't been violence. So far, there's no indication that there's any pressure. So can we just be given a chance to just work it out? Those are my views.
All right, Dudu, unfortunately, your line is not so great, but we got the gist of it that, you know, the SADC community and the AU, to an extent, hasn't been very helpful in this situation. Perhaps it's time for Zimbabweans to come up with their own unique solutions. We have Philip in Harare in Zimbabwe. Good evening to you, Philip, and thanks for calling. Hi, Philip.
Yes, I'm calling from Harare, but I'm mostly... I'm representing rural farmers in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, Philip, we're struggling to hear you. Just if you can speak out or a little bit louder.
Yes, I was saying I'm calling from Harare, but I'm mostly representing rural farmers in Harare, especially young farmers.
Yes, and what are the conditions there? I mean, there's a sense of tension, having spoken to our reporters on the ground, and uncertainty as to what could trigger the next move and what shape that move will take. In your view, are you saying that the situation is calm and you don't anticipate any further disruption in life, as it were?
No, for now, the situation is quite calm. I mean, there's no cause for much concern within Harare itself, or even within the in the provinces, within the rural Zimbabwe. There's normal, farmers are out there, things are work as usual, and it's business as usual.
Philip, thank you so much for that update. Of course, we're giving you the most recent visuals in Harare at the moment. We can see the strong presence of military vehicles. We, even earlier this week, were told that the military had occupied most of the streets in Harare, creating a sense of panic. And I wonder if, Mr. Mandaza, you can put it into context that what is currently happening is a necessary process of a democratic path, if you will, or trajectory that Zimbabwe is taking.
What I would say is premised on the statement that was read by the Zimbabwe Defense Forces commander, as well as what came out of the statement read this morning, that the military has taken over in order to usher in a dispensation in which self-correction is needed. Firstly in the party, and it will also pilfer to the country, by making sure that issues that they have raised in their statements are addressed, But what is most critical, I think, is the fact that the army has decided to stay away from getting the power, and their intention is to make sure that what we had seen for the past few months or so could possibly degenerate into violent clashes if they are left unattended. And hence they have come in to ensure that those issues are attended to. Does that impact on the democratic process that is supposed to take place in the country? I believe the army generals are quite cognizant of what the SADC and the United Nations, as well as the AU protocols, say with respect to issues of civilian authority. And it is for this reason why they've said that in the shortest possible time, they would want to ensure that normalcy retains and the power is given to those that are supposed to be running the country. And most critical too is the fact that they have said, let all functionaries that ensure that the state is running continue to operate. And that in itself, I think, has given hope to the majority of the people that the army does not in any way intend to take over control and run the government.
All right, so we've got callers waiting patiently. Joseph in Harare, good evening to you. Sam in Northgate, we'll come to you next. And Kenneth in Cape Town. We start with Joseph. Good evening to you. Hi, Joseph.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
We are very jubilant here in Harare. In support of the army, finally we can do something for ourselves. We do not need such intervention. We do not need President Zuma. We want to solve on our own in Zimbabwe. We have been crying for very long for SADC to AU. We don't need in our country. Let us solve our own problems on our own. No SADC, no anyone. We are going to do this on our own as Zimbabwe.
Yeah, Joseph, a very sobering pronouncement there that, you're jubilant and Zimbabweans have an opportunity to clean up their own country and your issues. And as you see on your screen, these are the recent visuals from Harare. It seems a life of normalcy, really. People going about their business, except, of course, you can't ignore the presence of the military vehicles in the streets of Harare. But we take other callers. Sam in Northgate, good evening to you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you.
What's your comment or question?
I'm just happy with what's happening right now in Zimbabwe. Me personally, I believe that the Zimbabwe that we want as Zimbabweans begins by removing Robert Mugabe from power. He must just step down, and then after that, a change will come within a change. That's what I believe.
All right, Sam.
Where was SADC? Where was Zuma when ZANU-PF and Robert Mugabe was torturing people during elections from 2000 when MDC was formed? Where was he? SADC, the United Nations, Zuma, they all kept quiet. Even in 2008, Thabo Mbeki even declared that there is no crisis in Zimbabwe. Where is the crisis now? I'm even surprised you guys are calling it a crisis. Your president, your former president, he actually said that there was no crisis in Zimbabwe in 2008.
Yeah, well, let's test that with our panelists, whether it is an indictment on the interventions from SADC and the AU so far, and what now has culminated in Zimbabweans essentially taking their destiny in their own hands. Let's go to Kenneth in Cape Town. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Cindy. I think African problems, they need African solutions, and equally so, Zimbabwean problems, they need Zimbabwean solutions. We are very happy for the removal of the president of Zimbabwe, as we had lost hope on who could take him on. Since all constitutional ways could not work, since he could suppress freedom of speech and rigged the election. In short, he was a dictator, and he called himself an irrepressible leader, as if he contested with anyone, any candidate, and so that he emerged victorious.
So I think as Zimbabweans, we are celebrating. The army, I think they are capable of taking care of the situations in Zimbabwe. When we really need help, then maybe we will call the SADC or the African Union. But I think for now, we don't support a coup, but we had no other choice to take than this one.
Kenneth, thank you so much. We'll get a word from Mr. Mandaza, ZANU-PF spokesperson, whether indeed the sentiments from some of our callers that Robert Mugabe had become the personification of the problems in Zimbabwe, and they are joyous that it looks like his end is near.
Everyone is entitled to his or her own opinion. What is important, I think, at this juncture is for us to look at the whole situation as it unfolds, because primarily why the army is coming into the fore is to make sure that the issues that many people could have raised are attended to. And if those issues are issues that will bring the kind of change that people desire, that is the best thing that could have happened to the majority of the people. I think ordinarily what is important is to look for solutions that will ensure that Zimbabwe gets back to where it was, and ensure that there is peace, unity, and development in the country. That is what we need to look at. And the intervention of the army, I think it seeks to bring in that by ensuring that there is normalcy in the party ZANU-PF, and since ZANU-PF is the party in government, I think if normalcy is in the party ZANU-PF, then there will be normalcy also in some of the programs and issues that they are supposed to put in. And eventually, people have an opportunity to choose whoever they want when we get to elections.
But I'm just saying, in terms of the response in the interventions from SADC since time immemorial, and the AU, our former president, with what was then the alleged silent diplomacy that hadn't worked, you think that's an indictment on SADC, and maybe even confirming the reports that the delegation was actually sent back?
Zimbabwe does not live in isolation of other countries. It's not an island on its own. It interacts with many other countries, those that are in the region and those that are in Africa, as well as the international community. So when we have problems in the country, while we appreciate the fact that Zimbabweans need to come up with a Zimbabwean solution to the problems that they have, I think we should not also shy away from the fact that we can learn from other people that are surrounding us. So the intervention or the coming in of SADC and the AU, I think there's no problem.
Look, the military security sector reforms that we're speaking to were as a result that the military has just been over the years an organ of the ruling party. We needed to depoliticize the military. Mugabe refused. During the inclusive government, the army has kept him in power. This is why a military is a faction within a ruling party. So it is not about resolving the national question in Zimbabwe. It is about resolving the internal disputes in ZANU-PF, Timla Costa versus G40. Unfortunately, we are all caught up in this. But the critical question is where to from here, because the reality of the matter is that the military is now in control. How best can we then ensure that we begin to embark on a democratic process so that the new government, interim government that is coming into place, who are these people that are going to constitute this interim government that will develop a roadmap to a free and a fair election?
Yeah, but this is an opportunity nonetheless, Dr. Katsamba, in closing, that it could be the beginning of a new dispensation in your view. Yeah,
I totally agree. Because if you look at the statement that was made by the army this morning, they are targeting not His Excellency the President of Zimbabwe, and they are only targeting those people who have been stealing, who have been causing economic turmoil in Zimbabwe. At this point in time, it is quite a debatable issue because the people of Zimbabwe, they have to be careful. I think it's too early for them to celebrate. Because as he has said, ZANU-PF and the army, they've been working hand in glove. And at this point in time, they are still protecting the same president. who has been causing the same problem and presiding over these despotic activities. So at this point in time, I do not see, as much as we are a stepping stone towards democracy, but I don't think this is the ushering in of a new democracy.
Okay, early days, and of course the general elections taking place next year. Hopefully, who knows, those might even be called earlier. But thanks so much to our panelists for joining us. And of course, we have our presence in Harare with Audrey Chimwande just having landed there. We'll get a response from her with regards to what's going on the ground. We also listen in to more voices coming in from Zimbabwe.
We uphold the gallant role taken by the Zimbabwe Defense Forces in defense of Zimbabwe's constitution and to normalize the situation within the ruling ZANU-PF. When a revolution is unfolding, it is difficult for a political practitioner to be able to tell you exactly what will happen. But the day will
It might be delayed, it will always happen. The solution to any coup, to any takeover that might be done now is an election. And we know that an election is coming. Otherwise, with this situation that we have now, we are looking towards a free and fair election. Because now we will easily see the intervention of the international community and other bodies that would like to see standard elections being done in Zimbabwe.
It's a sad day for the tenets of democracy. The reason being that, whenever you see the military getting involved in civil politics, it's a worrying situation. Particularly for Zimbabwe right now, where we were, on an overdrive for voter registration, expecting the elections and also expecting that we were going to unseat the current regime via a credible election. Now the military moving in sort of sends shivers to the whole democratic movement, sends shivers to the whole hope that the Zimbabweans had for regime change.
The situation is eased a bit in the capital, Harare. The parliament building behind me had been cordoned off since morning. As of now, people are now being allowed to pass through. Frank Chikore, ANN7, Harare, Zimbabwe.